Welcome to Lesson 20. This is the last lesson in this series. If you have followed along this far, I greatly appreciate it. If you're just landing on this lesson, that's fine too. In this lesson, we will look at the Emboss feature. As we have on this part, we're going to focus on creating text on a part. We'll show a couple of different ways to do that, but look at the Emboss feature and the advantages that it has, how it's different from using an extrusion. Let's create us a part to work on. Start a new part. A standard IPT, start our 2D sketch. Let's create a 2-point center rectangle so we are centered above and below the origin. Let's make it 6 inches wide, 2 inches tall. We will experiment a little above and below the origin on this part. Say okay, finish that sketch, zoom back out a little, extrude that. ½ inch is good for this one. Let's make a new sketch on the face of this part. Let's create some text now. We haven't looked at text and using text in an extrusion yet, so we will do that. Click on text, and we need to give it a location. Let's draw a big box that about fills the top half of this part. Exact size is not real critical at this point, but so that everything is centered, let's click the center justification button, and then over here the middle. That gets us centered left to right and gets us in the middle, top to bottom. And let's type in our favorite phrase, fully constrained. Highlight that text. Let's give it a height of 0.750 and hit enter. That's going to be a little too big. That's okay. We can adjust that. Go back and highlight everything. Let's try 0.5. That works. That fits. We can add some constraints to this text box. Let's make it, let's do this. This will make it 50,000, not 500, 50 thousandths off the top. We will make it 50 thousandths off the origin, and then 50. Oh, click something wrong there. Make it 50 thousandths. Come back over here and click that other 50 thousandths. 50 thousandths off of each side. So that gets our text constrained in here. Notice it's between the tail of the Y here and the top of the L's and the F and the C, the taller letters. That's where it's going to be constrained. If we just wanted to adjust the position of where it sits a little bit, we're free to drag those around, change those numbers. But for now, that gets us where we want. We have our text. We're centered top to bottom. And color at this point. That gets us where we want to be. Finish this sketch. Now, in the first half of this example, we are just creating text on a flat surface, and we can use extrude for that. To select our profile, we just come in here and click anywhere on that text, and it selects the whole thing. We don't have to go through piece by piece. We don't need it sticking up that high. Let's just make that 20 thousandths, 0.020. Zoom in a little bit. See our profile where it is coming up off the part. So we can create our text raised on the part. We can also come back in here, edit this, and tell it to cut. And we can cut cancel. Okay, we can also come back in here and tell it to cut. Let's double click that extrusion, change to cut. See what happens. We get an error message, and that is because we are trying to cut up into the air. We need to flip that, so we are now cutting down into the part. Usually if you select cut as you're creating an extrusion, it will automatically select your direction, but since we're coming in and changing it, it was sticking with that default direction away from the surface of the part. But now we are, as you can see, cut into the part. So there is text. If you want to come in, click on that feature, come up here to the top to the color selector, and we can make that color of that cut anything that we want. The other way that you can do that is to use the drop down here and select one of the appearances on that drop down menu. But now we can see that text stand out from the part. Let's create some curvature to this face now. We want to see the limitations of extrude and what other options we have for creating text. Let's create a new sketch on the front face of this part. Make an arc. Click on one end. Let's project some geometry first. Click on one end, click on the other end. Now we create an arc. We've got something to stick to. Make sure you don't get that midpoint. We don't want it to lock there. We want to be able to add our own dimensions. So click on that end of the part, all the way across the other end of the part, and then give it just a little bit of upward curvature. Create a dimension off the top face of the part down. Let's make that, I will make it 0.2. Do the other end the same. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same, but we'll make it the same. And here in the middle, we can pick up that midpoint. Let's make it just 20 thousandths off the top face so it comes in close. Right click and say OK. Finish that sketch. And as we went along, it created these lines around the outside. So when we start an extrude, that will automatically select that profile. We want to start cutting into the part. It is set for cut. We made the part 2 inches wide, so let's cut halfway through with a 1 inch dimension. Now we need to create our sketch for our extrusion again. We still have this top face, so let's go ahead and create a sketch on that top face, but I'm going to put my text down here at the bottom. Go ahead and create another text box. Ready to draw that rectangle, we'll put it there. Go ahead and set our height to 0.5. Type in fully constrained again. Position it in the middle with both of those buttons and say OK. We'll come back in as we did before. Oops, didn't pick up my line there. Undo that. As we did, let's put all these same 50 thousandths dimensions all the way around just so that text box stays in place. We'll tie everything back to that original 50 thousandths. Now that our text box that says fully constrained is fully constrained, we can say OK and finish that sketch. Look at what we've got. We have now this text floating up above the part. Let's just see what happens if we use extrude as we did before. Click on the text. Let's cut. If I do 20 thousandths as I did before, I'm not touching anything. Well, we have our text floating up above the part, so let's click on extrude as we did before and just see what it gives us. It is going down towards the part we are wanting to cut. If I say OK right here, I'm not going to get anything because I'm only cutting 20 thousandths where I was 20 thousandths down from the top surface of the part, so it won't give us any cut. Let's make this 50 thousandths here and see what happens. There, all I got was 50 thousandths straight down. Let's go up here to view. It's a half section view. Click on the front face of that part with a half section view and drag back. Click OK, go back to the bottom view, and we can see the bottom of all of these letters, 50 thousandths from the top face of the part, but it cuts off. It goes level straight across. We can get a little more. What if we did 0.25? 0.25 gets us everywhere, but again has this flat bottom straight across the part so that we are much deeper in the middle than we are out here on the sides. And if there was a situation where that's what you wanted, that would be fine. But that is not what we want. So let's go up here, delete our section view, finish that. Let's get rid of this extrusion. Now be careful when we delete this. We do not want to delete that sketch that we use. So uncheck that box and say OK. And we get back to this sketch floating out over the part. Now back in the 3D model tab, we have Emboss. Emboss creates a raised or recessed feature from a profile. Extrude does that as well, but what Emboss lets you do is use the curvature of the surface of the part. So let's select our text as our profile. Let's tell it that we want to engrave from face. We want it to wrap to the face, and then we have to look at our direction. See that arrow that changes? That goes down. We do want it to go down towards the part, and we want that depth of 20 thousandths. Okay, let's go back and do that again. Okay, so we're back here with our sketch floating out above the part. The text is there in the air. We can see the bottom side of it. So let's go now and use the Emboss feature instead of Extrude. When we click on Emboss, the first thing it wants is a profile, which in this case is our text. We could make raised letters, but let's make this one engrave from face. We will make it cut into the face. Look at the direction we are going. That arrow is coming up. We want to switch that so the arrow is going down to the part. Do not check wrap to face right now. And let's click OK. And there it goes, down to the surface of the part. Let's go back to our section view, our half section view. Cut back into the part, and we can see a little better there how we have that even depth all the way down. Now notice a couple of things here. Let's make that a little deeper just so we can see. That we have a consistent depth from the face down to the bottom. All of these sidewalls, everything is going straight down directly into the part. Now let's go back in and edit this emboss. Look at one more possibility, and that is the wrap to face checkbox right here. Whereas previously we were cutting straight down directly into the part, here we can wrap to this face. It is ready to select. Click on that face, and rather than going straight down everywhere, we are going to match the curvature of the part. Let's look at what we have a little closer as we zoom in. So whereas previously everything went straight down, aligned with, in this case, the z-axis of the part, now we are normal to the curvature of that surface. We are coming as if we oriented the top curvature of that surface pointing straight up and coming straight down into that. And as we move across the part, everything is coming directly off of that curve. Let's go all the way to the other side, and we can see where we are tilted in, again, towards the center of that curvature. I'm going to edit this one more time and change that depth to 20 thousandths, just like the other one. If I was cutting that, I wouldn't really want to cut nearly that deep. Just wanted to see what the different possibilities are. Let's end that section view. Let's give this last thing a color. Click on Emboss and make that a light blue. We have used text on this example. You can emboss with shapes as well. I can come in here and I can draw circles and rectangles and emboss those as well. We just use text in this example. Again, thank you for following along. This is the last lesson in this series. By no means have we covered everything in Inventor. We have focused mainly on some of the basic features that you would use when creating solid models. There's assemblies to look at, there's drawings to look at, plenty more to do and plenty more lessons in the works. But for now, please take what you have learned from these lessons, go back, just watch them again if you need to. Practice those skills, because it's by repetition and muscle memory that you're going to get proficient at drawing parts in Inventor. Again, thank you for watching, and please come back and check out our other playlists and other lessons as those get created.